I've been talking a lot in the latest videos that I've made about this Sun Uranus Sedna conjunction, and I think that it's useful to bring in some other context of other things that are going on right now as well. We've got a Pluto Mars square. That's pretty volatile energy. It's calling for us to direct our our sense of presence and spaciousness. It's that tug of war between the unconscious and the conscious desires. And Pluto in Aquarius is, has been exposing things that have been conditioned that we need to kind of shatter that conditioning and break away from. And this trine to Uranus, Sedna, Sun conjunct together is is a beautiful background for this to happen. This is going to go on for a while, and I think that when I think about Sedna and the Sun and Uranus together, Sedna, we've probably got a lot of frozen memories and things that we have that are so deep within the psyche. Man, this can be like some pre-verbal kind of stuff, traumas that we've buried away. And from an inner psychological level, this kind of looks like the masculine side of our psyche, the ego, trying to overpower these more receptive and emotional sides of us. And I've been recently exploring a lot of James Hillman, and James Hillman talked about pathology as the gateway to the soul. He didn't look at pathology as a thing to solve, something to get rid of. And instead, he looked at it as something to enter relationship with. And I really like this perspective. Um, as it's like the original parts work, and I think that I'd explain it this way: if we've got things that we've suppressed, that's the inner masculine refusing to allow that receptiveness and that openness of the feminine side of ourselves to allow things to come to the surface. And with Sedna there, these are things that we've, buried deep in the ocean, the Arctic goddess, and they can become frozen in time. I've recently had a dream where I was I was forced to move back into this old condo that I used to live in. And when I was there, I looked up at the ceiling and it was like the inside of an old freezer. There was like 4 inches of buildup of ice on the inside of the ceiling. And I thought that was super strange. As I sat with that image, I realized that, it was my uh, it was my psyche telling me that I can't continue to occupy this old identity that I have done in the past, where I've kept my emotions frozen and isolated from other people. And so I took that as a cue to kind of be more open and vulnerable. And it really helped. Like it's amazing when you can sit with something um, and kind of circle around it with curiosity, not to get rid of it, but to really understand it. And trying to, get rid of something, that's that masculine side of us pushing it down. This square between Pluto and Mars, in Mars and Taurus, uh, we're we're now retrograde with Pluto, and so we're trying to integrate some of the things or enter in relationship in a new way some of these things that have come up. And Mars is just on a new phase with Chiron. And so I think some of these wounds that are surfacing, we're now having an opportunity to show up in a new way. Like, how can we be present and become aware of these things? It's through that curiosity and, looking at it with new eyes. And when we look at the Uranus sun and Sedna, that sun, I believe, is warming things up and just shining that light on these deeper frozen parts, and giving them an opportunity to, allow these fragments of the deep memories that we have there to come forward. And if we can look at those and move to the polarity, which we're moving into a full moon in Sagittarius, and that's going to be about an understanding of this, understanding the truth of what this means. And I really think that, that's going to be helpful. But some of the things that are coming up from this Sedna Sun conjunction, Sun is there helping us to see things clearly and integrate things. It's a Leo archetype, and if we can recognize and communicate with these parts and enter relationship and enter it on a level playing field. If we're trying to get rid of them, that's a power over dynamic, and it's probably not going to work. That's what we've been doing, and it isn't working. We're already in relationship to these parts. It's just not an equitable relationship if we're trying to dominate it, push it away, bury it, etc. And so these traumas, the psyche thought and felt like it was a trauma, and as we come back to it, we have an opportunity to circle around it and see it from a new perspective. This Uranus there, seeing it from a higher perspective and getting these flashes of insight and breaking free from, these kind of conditioned realities. We may have conditioned responses to these flashes of insight, to these deeper memories that kind of put us into this survival strategy. And you've also got a trine from the North Node to Venus in Cancer, and we've got Jupiter in Cancer, and I think that's a calling to to learn to nurture and relate to these parts in a new way. And that North Node, it's like surrendering in and resting in our true selves, and seeing through that illusion that we have possibly been living under, which is that it's too hard. And the parts that we're looking at that could have been exposed, they could be deep parts of us that we really are, that it's uncomfortable to look at. It may be things that, most of the time we just choose to look away as soon as we think of it. It's just this millisecond of, recognition, but no, I'm not going to look at that, and I'm going to look away. But how can we stay present, stay calm, be at peace with it? That Mars in Taurus, and Chiron is headed for Taurus. As soon as it moves in there and reaches 3 degrees, it's going to go in and back out and then come back in over the next year or so. And, I think that's where it was discovered. And there's some pretty cool stuff that I think is going to happen with that. But we're revisiting our values and what this means about our identity. And I think to break away from identifying with some of these things, And I think that Pluto going into Uranus, or to Aquarius, pardon me, is, kind of shattering some of that conditioning, and I think it's good to kind of differentiate from the learned guilt versus the earned guilt. Venus is also sextiling the South Node, and that differentiation between what is learned and what is earned is a really good way to kind of meet these parts of ourselves and say, okay, well, maybe I've learned that I should feel guilty about this when it's maybe not really, something that's mine to carry. But maybe there is some stuff that's earned. But how are we relating to that? Are we putting it in a backpack and carrying it around with us as something that is just, our identity that we were trying to hide from other people? Or can we look at that and appreciate the fact that, that's something that we chose to do? It's a behavior that we did. It's not necessarily who we are. And so it's all in how we relate to it. We're going to be in relationship to it. James Hillman talked about this plural theistic way of consciousness, and that's understanding that one kind of consciousness isn't going to dominate all the rest of them, and that's like the ego versus this feminine side, the receptive side, and it takes many forms. And so how can we avoid this monotheistic kind of consciousness and move towards allowing that pluralistic mentality to exist? It's not going to go away. We're relating to it on one level already, even if we are jamming it down and not focusing on it. And so the wisdom that Jupiter brings from Cancer is that we can nurture it and we can sit with it and see the truth of it and how it's shaped our beliefs about ourselves. And with Venus joining and moving into a new phase conjunction, so we're finishing up, we're culminating this cycle. How are we relating to ourselves? What are these old ways of relating that we can kind of let go of? What have we attached to? Pluto in Aquarius, what have we attached to that is distorting our understanding of who we are, that identity? And with the sun there and Sedna and Uranus, it's this reclaiming of these frozen parts. It's to awaken them and awaken to the reality that this stuff doesn't go away, and that's okay. Especially like we're building new neural pathways. We talked about this before, and to build a new neural pathway takes work. It takes conscious effort. It's easy to slide into these old, comfortable shoes that we can walk around in. But is that really going to get us what we want? Those parts that are frozen there, I mean, it's not an identity that's going to continue on. I think that we're moving into a new paradigm of reality here. And I think that collectively, that's what's going on with this Pluto trine Uranus and Sedna, and the Neptune Saturn new phase. You've got sextiles from Uranus back to Neptune and from Pluto to Neptune, and these are all going to perfect. We're going to see some pretty beautiful alignments coming up this year. I think this is all combined together, and we're moving into this new paradigm. And I think that to cooperate with this and learn that there's nothing, it's not like there's a ladder that we have to climb. I want to focus on that too, because that Hillman part where the pathology is not something to be conquered. It's not something that we have to change or do something about. It's all in how we relate to it. And that's beautiful when we go back to look at that that new moon in Aries and the polarity point to that being Libra. Um, that to me, like, we're learning to bring this new reality into existence, and it takes a new way of relating, one that's not dominating and controlling and, overpowering. It's one that it flows better, it flows smoother, it's easier. And it can be hard when you're talking about these things that we've attached to over a long period of time, that we kind of carry around in that big black bag over our shoulder, uh, that we're ashamed of, we're trying to hide from other people. If you can relate to that, that's where the gifts are. That's where the gold is. That's where the pathology is a gateway to the soul. And if you can sit with it long enough, uh, that that Persephone myth psychology, uh, being able to be abducted into the underworld and see the shadow, meet the shadow, and not run away from it, but choose to stay there and actually become the queen of the underworld. That's that feminine mentality. It changes you. I mean, it'll change you forever. And I think that it comes in cycles, in waves. We can't do it all at once. If we did try to do it all at once, it would overwhelm us and overpower us, and we'd become we'd be flooded with shame and guilt. And so I think that working with this energy, we're gonna see a lot of things come up. We're going to get flashes of insight. We're going to get these little bits of truth. This Gemini, Uranus, Sun, Sedna stuff. But as it comes up, how have we kind of put the pieces together that may not be a true reflection of reality? Maybe we can circle around it a few times, see it from a different angle, and find a new understanding of it that is just slightly different. What a person gave me, or often has pointed out, this picture, and she shows it to me when I'm only seeing things one-sided, and it's got two guys looking at the same object from this side and that side, and one of them says 4. There are 4 ends on this side, and one of them says 3. There are 3 ends on that side, and they're both looking at each other like, what's wrong with you? You can't see this. They're both right. They're just seeing it from different perspectives. And so how can we change our perspective to see it from this other part of us, this other consciousness, so that we can understand what it needs? I keep harping on this, but it really is about entering relationship to these parts of ourselves. And I think that what we can do with this on the inside, from the heart side, from the inside out, and to get to where we're expressing our true heart and our true selves, and not carrying them around in a black bag over our shoulders to not let anybody see, that's going to shift the paradigm we live in. That's going to change how the world relates to us, how we relate to the world. And even if it's just a perspective shift, what's wrong with that? But I think it's going to go beyond that. I think that the reality is changing, and the more that we can relate to it and do it consciously, the better off we're all going to be. So I'm going to leave it at that. I, we're up here. I think that's it's a good idea to sit in nature. This is some property that my wife has had in her family for decades. Her grandfather bought this back in the 70s, and it's just beautiful up here. It's a desert landscape. There's so much growth and death all in the same place, and it just reminds me of the cycles. Parts of this land haven't been touched for eons. It's just so undeveloped, but I love it up here, and I think that it's a good idea to sit in nature. We're working off of a Taurus new moon, and Mars is in Taurus, and how can we allow that peace and have presence all the way into our body and embody these changes? It's one thing to understand this stuff mentally, psychologically, but it's a whole nother thing to embody this. Embodied astrology, mythology, framework, whatever you want to call it, is the way forward. Jeff Green talked about this. Evolution happens through the emotional body, and Jupiter is in Cancer, really making this big, and Venus is in Cancer now, calling for us to listen to our inner voice and relate to it in a new way. So this is all beautiful energy. It's very supportive. This Pluto-Mars square can be difficult. That's a pretty rough one. But when it comes up, if you have things that come up that are super hard to look at, it's making that conscious choice to align yourself with the unconscious desires, the soul. It's coming up for a reason. When we get triggered about something, it's coming up for a reason. And how can we get closer to being soul-led and leading from a place that, we're not trying to be a boss. There's a difference between a boss and a real leader. I've talked about that in some other videos, but a real leader only steps in when he needs to. They need to. Men, women, none of this matters. It's not about gender. It's about your inner psychology. The feminine is the receptive and open. The masculine is that not dominating, but that protective presence that can be a direction forward. Maybe we'll do some more videos talking and really defining what the divine masculine is versus the divine feminine. I think that's a worthy topic too. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at that, and I hope you guys are meeting yourselves well, so to speak. Let's meanwhile try to expand the community. Hit the like, subscribe, and hype button, and share these videos if you're finding things of value from them. And make some comments if you want clarification on some of the stuff that I'm talking about. Make a comment. We'll discuss it further. And meanwhile, that's what I got for you guys. And thanks a lot. Enjoy.